Welcome to the deep dive. We sift through your source materials to pull out the insights that, well, really matter.
Yeah, and today we're looking at a Dharma talk you sent us, one that gets into a really fundamental question.
Right, where do we actually find true support? Real safety when things feel uncertain.
Exactly. And this deep dive, it unpacks this ancient teaching that kind of flips how we usually think about security.
It really does. It sort of pushes us to look inward, doesn't it, instead of always seeking outside.
Our mission today is to try and understand this powerful idea, having oneself as an island, Dhamma as an island.
It feels so relevant. I mean, it's easy to look for stability in external things, jobs, people, achievements.
Absolutely. But this teaching, it suggests something much deeper, finding refuge in, well, inner truth and strength.
Okay, so let's dive into that central idea. Where do we start?
Let's start with the core phrase itself. In Pali, the language it was originally taught in, it's attadīpā, attasaraṇā, nāññassaraṇā. Dhammadīpā, dhammassaraṇā, nāññassaraṇā.
That sounds profound just on its own. And the translation in the source material is pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it translates as, have oneself as an island, have oneself as a refuge, other things are not. Have Dhamma as an island, have Dhamma as a refuge, other things are not.
Other things are not. That's quite definitive.
It is. And the talk emphasizes this wasn't just, some casual advice. The Buddha taught this because apparently it's not something we naturally grasp on our own.
So it's presented as a pretty deep realization, something only the Buddha could fully see and share.
That's the idea. It's a profound truth about our own inner capacity for refuge.
And the story of how he taught this is fascinating, too. The source mentions it happened after some really significant talks.
Right. After the Dhammakaya Sutta and the Anattalakansa Sutta, he was traveling, and he runs into these 30 young princes in a forest.
And they weren't just relaxing, were they?
No, not at all. They were completely frantic, searching everywhere. Apparently, they'd been enjoying themselves, and a prostitute they were with took off with their valuables.
Okay, so their focus is entirely out there on the lost stuff, on the person who took it.
Exactly. Total external focus, lots of distress. And seeing this, the Buddha asks them this incredibly simple yet powerful question.
What was it?
He asks, essentially, do you want to find the woman, or do you want to find yourselves?
Wow. That really cuts through it.
Doesn't it? And amazingly, they chose to find themselves.
That must have been a pivotal moment.
Huge. And right then, that's when the Buddha delivers this teaching. Attadīpā, attasaraṇā. It just perfectly highlights the shift he was pointing to, moving from that desperate external search to an internal one for real refuge.
Okay, so the teaching starts, have oneself as an island. Let's unpack oneself. Atta has in Pali. It's obviously not just talking about this body we have right now.
No, definitely not that simple. The talk explains oneself refers to multiple layers or levels of being. Sometimes they're called bodies, kaya, in Pali. It paints quite a complex picture of existence.
And the source seems to break these down into two main kinds of selves or bodies.
That's right. The first group is the bodies associated with existence within the cycle of rebirth, samsara, within the conventional realms.
Like the human realm, heavenly realms, those kinds of states.
Exactly. Kamaloka, Rupaloka, Arupaloka. The source lists 8 of them, starting with the human body we know, then a subtle human body, then heavenly bodies, Brahma bodies.
Yeah.
Getting finer and finer.
And these 8 are described as temporary, conventional.
Yes, precisely. They're called conventional selves, attasaraṇā.
Yeah.
The teaching, according to the source, really stresses that these are subject to change, to suffering.
Ah, the classic anicca dukkha, anatta, impermanent suffering, not self.
You got it. So while they act as a kind of temporary base for our experience, they aren't a truly reliable, lasting refuge. They change.
But the teaching isn't saying there's nothing lasting, right? It points to something as a refuge.
Right, and that brings us to the second category of bodies. These are described as being outside the cycle of rebirth. These are the Dhamma bodies, Dhammakaya. They represent different stages of spiritual liberation, of real attainment. The source lists 10 of these.
10 Dhamma bodies. And are they described differently from the first 8?
Oh, absolutely. Completely different terms.
Yeah.
These Dhamma bodies, which are attained through profound inner purity, they're described as permanent, as true happiness.
Permanent, so not subject to that change and suffering.
In this specific context of liberation, yes. The source actually uses the Pali terms nikka sukha atta, permanent, happiness, and a true, real self or reality. These represent the lasting refuge the teaching is ultimately pointing towards.
Okay, that's a crucial distinction. So when the Buddha says have oneself as an island, it's not just about being self-reliant in daily life. It encompasses this whole spectrum.
Exactly. Recognizing the temporary nature of our conventional selves, but also understanding that the real, unchanging refuge is found in cultivating and realizing these liberated Dhamma bodies.
Got it. Okay, so that's oneself. What about the second part? Have Dhamma as an island. What is Dhamma referring to here? It sounds like it's more than just, the teachings or concepts.
Yes, in this context, it's described as something much more concrete, more essential. It's portrayed as the core element that actually allows any of these bodies, conventional or liberated, to exist at all.
Like the life force or the foundation.
Something like that.
Yeah.
The source says without this Dhamma element, the body would just cease. It's fundamental.
And does it say where this Dhamma is?
It does, quite specifically. It's described as being located right at the very center of each and every body. Imagine drawing lines front to back and left to right through the middle where they intersect. That's the spot.
And what's it like?
It's described as a clear sphere of Dhamma. Tuangdam is the term used in the source context. A sphere right at the core of each level of being.
Okay, a central sphere. And the source gets very detailed here, doesn't it? About the nature and even the size of these spheres.
It really does. It's quite fascinating. The talk describes these Dhamma spheres having different characteristics depending on which body they're associated with.
So for our current human body.
For the human body, the sphere is described as clear, about the size of a chicken's egg yolk. This sphere is said to contain the life force, consciousness, memory, thought, knowledge. And its condition, whether it's clear or dim, affects the body's vitality.
Interesting. And for the other bodies within the realms, those other 7 conventional ones?
For those 8 bodies within the realms overall, the Dhamma spheres are said to increase in size proportionally as you go up through the levels. From the subtle human body sphere being twice the egg yolk size, up to the subtle formless Brahma body sphere being 8 times that size. These are all associated with conventional Dhamma, Dhammasamudi.
Still part of the temporary setup in a way.
Right. But then, when we get to the Dhamma bodies, those 10 liberated selves outside the realms, the description changes dramatically. The Dhamma spheres within these Dhamma bodies are described as being much, much larger, incredibly radiant. They're associated with the true, real Dhamma.
And their size, still proportional.
Yes, but on a totally different scale. Their size is described in relation to the lap width, natak, of the Dhamma body itself. They start at measures like 2 cubits across and grow. Well, the source describes the sphere within the highest, the subtle Arahant Dhamma body, as being of vast, almost immeasurable size. Countless asankhya, it says.
Wow. That signifies its power and permanence as a refuge, I guess.
Exactly. So Dhamma as an island, Dhamma as a refuge. It specifically refers to this internal central sphere of truth and life force, this essence located at the core of each level of being.
Wow.
And it culminates in that immense radiant sphere within the fully liberated Dhamma body.
Okay, that connects the dots. So now we have one self as the various bodies and Dhamma as these central spheres. How do they function as islands and refuges?
Well, the talk uses a simple analogy to explain this. Imagine someone shipwrecked, lost at sea. What do they desperately need?
Land, an island. Somewhere solid to rest, find safety, get sustenance.
Precisely. That island is refuge, stability. So the talk says, in our current life, this human body acts as that kind of island and refuge for us right now.
Makes sense. We depend on it for basic existence, eating, sleeping, moving.
And crucially, these are things we fundamentally have to do for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have someone else eat for you or breathe for you in the same way. It's a very basic level of attadīpā relying on this particular self, this body.
And if we leave this body, like at death,
then our anchor shifts. The source says the subtle body, for instance, can't remain here without the physical one. The refuge changes.
Okay. And the Dhammasphere. How is it an island?
It's also an island and refuge because it supports the very existence of the body it inhabits. And there's this nested relationship described. The finer, more subtle bodies actually dwell within the Dhammasphere of the coarser body they rely on.
So like the subtle human body exists within the Dhammasphere of the physical human body.
That's the idea presented. It relies on that sphere, which relies on the physical body. But it's not just about the coarser supporting the finer.
What else?
The source makes a really important point. Each body, at every single level of existence, relies on itself, meaning that specific body, as its own island and refuge.
Ah, okay.
And it relies on its own associated Dhammasphere as an island and refuge too. It's this dual reliance happening recursively at every level.
So the human body relies on itself and its human dhammasphere. The subtle human body relies on itself, the subtle body, and its subtle dhammasphere.
Exactly. And so on, up through the heavenly bodies, the Brahma bodies, all the way to the liberated Dhamma bodies. Each relies on itself and its own corresponding Dhammasphere.
Which means the ultimate, truly stable, unchanging island and refuge must be found in realizing and cultivating those highest levels, the Dhamma bodies and their incredibly vast, radiant Dhammaspheres.
That's precisely where the teaching leads. And the way to cultivate this, according to the talk.
Let me guess. Inner development.
You got it.
Yeah.
It's directly connected to inner purity, purity of body, purity of speech, purity of mind. This inner work is the path to accessing and strengthening that ultimate internal refuge.
Which puts it in stark contrast to how people often seek refuge, right? Looking for security in external things.
Totally. The talk contrasts this inner path with seeking refuge in, say, spirits, or making vows to external powers, or relying on wealth or status or other people for ultimate security.
It suggests that kind of external reliance comes from maybe not having heard or not having understood this deeper truth, that the real Dhamma, the real refuge, is found within.
That seems to be the implication. The path described here is fundamentally about realizing this internal reality, understanding the structure of existence across all these levels. It's about seeing that the only truly reliable, unchanging islands and refuges are found only in oneself. That progression of bodies culminating in the Dhamma body, and in Dhamma that progression of spheres culminating in the ultimate Dhamma sphere within.
Wow. Okay, so this deep dive really shows that attadīpā, attasaraṇā, nāññassaraṇā, dhammadīpā, dhammassaraṇā, nāññassaraṇā, it's so much more than just a simple call to be independent or pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Oh, much more. It's presented as a kind of map of existence, pointing towards this profound truth. Our ultimate stability, our ultimate safety isn't found out there in the world. It's found through the realization and cultivation of this inner reality.
The Dhamma body and its central Dhamma sphere.
That's the ultimate island, the ultimate refuge described here, and it's accessed by turning inward and developing the purity that reveals the Dhamma already present within ourselves.
It really shifts the focus. So thinking about this whole complex picture, what does it mean for you listening right now to consider self and Dhamma in this really layered way, not just your everyday self, but these deeper potentials as your only true island and refuge, both temporarily maybe and ultimately?
Yeah, it's a powerful question to sit with. Are there parts of your life, maybe habits of mind, where you tend to seek refuge or ground yourself in something external, something outside yourself?
And does this teaching maybe invite you to investigate that, to see if perhaps the stability you're looking for could be cultivated more deeply within instead?
It's definitely an invitation for a shift in perspective,
Yeah.
something to mull over.